Hello, my friends. Welcome to the R&R sessions here on Mike Few Music. I really hope you guys enjoy this series with me. It's a little series that I want to put together where I talk about my favorite bands and the experiences that I've had seeing these bands, hearing these bands for the first time, maybe being lucky enough to have seen them live in concert. And yeah, it's just basic storytelling of some of my favorite bands. And the first one, I mean, it's my all-time favorite band. And as you know, it's Metallica. You can't just say Metallica, you have to say Metallica. You know what I mean, you have to say stuff like that. But ever since I can remember, the first time when I saw them live on TV, it was such a surreal experience for me because I was at my uncle's house this was in 1991, and we had this little cable company called Mnet over here in South Africa, and they were showing this band, a live show of a band. Now this is how weird this was back in the period. It was so loud and there was so much hair going around, and these guys were pumping out this sound. I mean, at that point in my life I've heard heavy metal and stuff, and I've heard hard music, but it just dawned on me, but this is it's chaotic, but it's beautiful at the same time, if you understand what I'm saying there. Very structured, but face-tearingly powerful, if I could put it that way. And I asked my uncle, who the hell is this? I mean, I was only 11 years old at this time, eh? And he says, no, it's a band called Metallica, and they're playing, the song is called Battery. And I thought, Battery, what a stupid name for a song, but I couldn't help finding myself sitting there going. Now, funny enough, about a week later, me and my mom was sitting in our living room, and here was the same band again on TV at an award show. I can't remember if it was the Grammy Awards. Probably was the Grammy Awards. But again, here's this band. I recognized the guy singing. This guy with the long blonde hair, and it's the drummer with the huge drum kit, and they're playing this. They start the intro to this. Just that I'm sitting there, and I think, but this sounds different from Battery, the song my uncle told me about. And again, I see the band's name, Metallica. And it's love at first sight for me. I hear this riff, and I hear this pounding guitars and these pounding drums to this amazing song. Well, I was mesmerized by that time. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was seeing and what I was hearing. And I mean, as a kid, I thought, well, this must be their very first song that they're doing. But I was so wrong. Years later, I found myself going into a record store and buying my first albums and stuff because I love music so much. And I remembered this band Metallica, and I thought, wow, I recognize that name. Now, the album that I saw there for the first time was this one, Kill 'Em All, their very first album. Now, being a kid, I mean, you don't have money and stuff, and it was still the days where you still had to go to a shop to go and acquire your music. It's not like today where you just go onto YouTube or Spotify, you type in a band name, and there's the thing. Back then, it was harder to get music, but it was much more worth getting that music. I couldn't afford the CD of any of Metallica stuff. The only two albums that was on the shelf that day was Ride the Lightning and Kill 'Em All. So I bought the cassette of Kill 'Em All, took it home, and I was pleasantly surprised to hear, but this doesn't sound anything like Enter Sandman that I just heard a couple of days ago. And I thought, okay, why is this now? And then I started doing the thing that I still do to this day, and I still love doing it. You go and research about a band. Got some money from my mum. She bought me the CD for Kill 'Em All. This sounded so much better. Man, this takes me back. 1983, this one. Absolute classic. One of the Metallica, they were one of the front runners of the thrash metal scene in the day with bands like Exodus and Overkill and Anthrax and all those guys, man. I mean, this was the birth of thrash metal. And I mean, I've seen so many documentaries where people talk about thrash metal and they think to themselves, well, they never really knew what the hell it was. But anyway, moving along. Well, after Kill 'Em All came, I think, probably my favorite Metallica albums to this day. It's Ride the Lightning. It has some of the most beautiful, powerful music on there. And again, I was pleasantly surprised because this, in a way, was different to Kill 'Em All. It does contain one of my all-time favorite songs, Fade to Black. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever written by that band. And then, of course, came the classic that everybody knows. It's Master of Puppets. And I mean, I was pleasantly surprised when I saw that song that I saw in my uncle's living room. When I saw that song, it's the first song on this album, so that's where this song comes from. I mean, this was 1986. Obviously, I couldn't buy this stuff when it came out for the first time because, I mean, when this album came out, I was 6 years old. But it was a very interesting journey for me, learning their music as a musician, as a guitarist. I mean, Kirk Hammett was my god. I mean, James Hetfield was my god when it came to guitar playing. It was just, I couldn't believe that these guys could do that stuff. Yes, and I must admit, I am a Lars fan. I have no problem with Lars Ulrich at all. I think he's an excellent drummer. I think being the drummer of one of the best-selling, biggest bands in the world in the history of music, that doesn't make you bad. Yeah, he's getting old. I mean, everybody gets old. I mean, are you still going to play the drums like a champ when you're like 85 years old? No. So give the guy a break, man. Back off, Lars. Yeah. Anyway. Justice for All, great songs. These guys were the front runners of, making songs that were very long before Dream Theater were doing it. And then, of course, the absolute classic that everybody knows, Metallica, or as we know it, the Black Album. Absolute classics. Metallica went through a very different stage. If you listen to all the first 4 albums, the mixes were so much different. The styles of music were a lot different. And then by the time they came around making the Black Album, they recorded it with a wonderful guy called Bob Rock. Now, I mean, you can't deny what Bob Rock did for Metallica's career, sonic-wise, music-wise. I mean, because their music became much more cleaner, crisper and stuff, but it still had the heaviness to it. He brought the best out of every single musician in that band. And, I mean, he went on to work with them for a couple of more years. I mean, he worked with them on Load, another one of my favorite albums. A lot of people don't like this album. I don't know why, because there's great music on it. Bob Rock also produced this. He did Reload, a couple of great songs on here. I mean, Feel the Memory Remains, The Unforgiven 2. It's amazing how Metallica went through their career as this band who always changed things around. And then unfortunately comes the era where this album was released. Now, hear me out. I don't think this is a bad album. I just think it sounds terrible. But the songs that James wrote during the hard time that he was going through, or well, what the band was going through during the time of making Saint Anger, these are actually great songs. Invisible Kid is a great song. It's really a great song. And I don't know, it's what's the other song of this album? The Unnamed Feeling. It's a beautiful thing. And I mean, this thing was accompanied by this movie that you can also see now on Netflix, Some Kind of Monster, which documents that whole making of that album and what the band basically went through. And it just shows you that these guys are human beings just like us. They go through shit and cuck and everything in their lives as well. But yeah, very, very good documentary. You can actually see that on Netflix now. And then a couple of years passed. I mean, I've been following Metallica to this point religiously. I mean, these were the guys that I wanted to see live. These were the guys I always wanted to learn their riffs. I wanted to learn their songs and stuff. They're still, to this day, my favorite band. And then by the time Death Magnetic came out, by this time Bog Rock wasn't with them anymore. It was Rick Rubin who produced this album. Does have a great sound and stuff. But the album doesn't sound as good to me as Hardwired to Destruct later did. The last album that they did. Proper studio album that Metallica did. I mean, I'm not talking about the compilation albums. I'm not talking about live albums, all that stuff. With Death Magnetic, later on you could buy the Beyond Magnetic. It's like a single. It has 4 songs on it. Hate Train, Just a Bullet Away, Hell and Back, great song. Rebel of Babylon. I don't know if you guys have ever heard these songs, but if you can, find these songs and just give them a listen. If you're a hardcore Metallica fan like I am, it'll be worth it, I promise you. What else do we have here? Yeah, probably one of the best live albums they ever did, S&M. The double live album where they played with the San Francisco Harmonic Orchestra, directed by Michael Kamen. Sadly, he's passed away a couple of years ago as well. Great show. I used to have this DVD of this live show as well. Unfortunately,
somebody took it.
I'll find you. Cover albums. This is the only cover album that matters to me. It's you get your favorite band playing some of the best songs written by the best metal bands in the world, only in the style of your favorite band. Their version of Astronomy, the original song by Blue Oyster Cult, their version of Merciful Fate by Merciful Fate, that whole melody of the Merciful Fate songs, man, such great song. And of course you can't mention this album, Garage Inc., without Whiskey in a Jar. The classic Thin Lizzy song, which is actually a traditional Irish song, but not a lot of people know that. They think Thin Lizzy just wrote a song by the name of Whiskey in a Jar, and Metallica just came up and turned it up to 11. The funny thing for me is one of the first CDs that I remember buying in high school, it's called the 12-inch EP that contains Jump in the Fire, a live version of Seek and Destroy, and it's a live version of Phantom Lord. Now I think by this time Dave was already out of the band, I'm not sure, but the great thing is, years later, I got my hands on a very nice little gem. It's the vinyl version of that CD. The guy who got me this, he bought it for £7.99. But this is what me and Mike Conway were talking about. Nowadays, you can't buy music and get artwork like this and just sit and stare at album arts. And the albums had these great sleevings inside. Sometimes they would have concert pics and lyrics and stuff in their sleevings. Can't find that nowadays. I mean, I think kids are missing out on music, to be honest. But anyway, stuff like that makes me very sad. I got this interesting CD from a friend on one of my birthdays. I think it was my 21st birthday. Now it's called Metallica The Wild Bunch. Now I found a version of it online that you can buy, but apparently it's very rare and very obscure. It's a live recording that was recorded in Davenport, Iowa on May the 30th, 1986. And the funny thing is, James Hetfield plays on this, Kirk Hammett, Cliff Burton, and Lars Ulrich. So it's still the 4 original members. It was recorded in America, but it came from Germany, Luxembourg or somewhere. But that's apparently a very rare CD. I mean, it has some good songs on it. Master of Puppets, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Sanitarium, Cliff Burton does a bass solo, Damage Inc., Seek and Destroy, Creeping Death, all that stuff. It's great live Metallica stuff. But here's a story that I want to share with you guys. Metallica came to South Africa twice. The first time, I couldn't afford to go and see them live, and I was pretty bummed out about it. And my band members at that time, they went and they saw them. Yes, and I was so jealous about, damn it, man, I wanted to see my favorite band live, and I just couldn't. And then in 2013, got the news from my ex-wife that Metallica is coming to South Africa, and she's going to get us some tickets. And I thought, wow, this is going to be great. And I remember the days picking up towards that concert. It was going to be held at F&B Stadium, Soccer City in Johannesburg. Pretty big stadium. I mean, it holds about 86 to 90,000 people. So it's a big stadium. And but the day we arrived at the stadium, this was the weirdest thing for me. I mean, if you're a concert goer, I mean, at this point, I've seen a lot of bands live in my life, which I'll get to on this series. But the day I arrived at this stadium, it was like the atmosphere was much more filled with electricity. The only thing going through my mind at that time was Metallica, they're over there. They're not in YouTube at the moment. They're not in a studio somewhere. They're over there in that stadium, and I'm going to see them live. It was a surreal experience for me to go and see them live for the first time. And I remember I got this woman. She drew the Metallica logo on my head at the back here. I just said to her, I just wanted to have to look cool on my bald head, you know. And but anyway, so there were these people. I mean, people have been standing outside the gates for hours and hours and hours coming into the to go into the stadium. And I arrived there. I mean, I'm a kind guy. I don't believe in being nasty to people and stuff. And it was kind of funny. I saw a couple of other guys there in wheelchairs and stuff, and I thought, wow, it's good to see the paraplegic people coming out to support their medal cravings, you know. And there was this big security guard. He came up to me and he said to me, "You come." Okay, what now? And I followed this guy. Now we go past this line. There's this one gate outside the stadium, but there's thousands of people standing in front of these gates. Thousands. I mean, these people have been standing there for hours and hours and hours and hours. And this big security guy parks me right in front of the gate. And I sat there and I'm being nice. How are you? Because I'm pretty scared I'm going to get murdered in a second there. Why is this guy pushing? They have this thing, yeah, they have to help out disabled people first, which is very nice of them and stuff, but I would have waited like any normal person. Anyway, a couple of minutes go by and he pushes me through the gate. And I go into the stadium with my ex-wife at the time, and two of my friends. They were all helpers all of a sudden. Everybody helped. Ooh, we have to help Mike. And it was so surreal when I turned my head and I looked at the gate, and there's these thousands of Metallica fans standing there. They've been waiting in the hot sun for hours. And here's this guy in his wheelchair just going into the stadium. You know how much fun it was to go into a stadium and the only people in there are the disabled people and the guys setting up the stages and stuff, doing sound checks. That's it. There's no crowd in there. It's just us. And guys, I promise you, it was one of the surrealist moments of my life. I thought I was going to get killed that night, but luckily, it didn't pan out that way. And the thing that really struck me was how, when Metallica started playing their set, how the sound changed from one sound engineer to another one. Mastodon's music was so loud and it was fuzzy and it wasn't beautiful. And then all of a sudden, when they were getting ready for Metallica to come onto stage, you just hear the frequencies change. And I mean, there's 86,000 people here. It's loud. The sound is powerful in a show like this. It's the best live show that I've ever seen, sound-wise and visually-wise. It was loud, powerful, but clear, if that makes sense to you. And well, when the Ecstasy of Gold started playing, and you just knew, okay, pretty soon little Lars is going to step through the curtains back there and he's going to raise his glass to the crowd, and then all hell's going to break loose. But what song are they going to play? What song are they going to play? And the lights dipped, Lars came up, spotlight on him, and then they started with Hit the Lights. Very first song they ever released on a major record, and man, I can tell you, I was in heaven. It was a great show. It was one of the most powerful shows I've ever seen. I promise you, the sound in that stadium was so loud. You know, when the stuff kicks in, the water in the toilets were shaking. Man, that was a great night. It was one of the best nights in my life. The 27th of April 2013. It took us longer. I mean, I didn't have a voice that the next day because I was singing, screaming, drinking beer. We weren't supposed to smoke in the stadium, but I did. I didn't give a shit. And man, it was such a great night. It took us almost 4 hours to get out of the parking lot just to get away from the stadium, but it was worth it. It was worth it. And yeah, unfortunately, I haven't seen a band live since, but I think I saw the best one last. And but yeah, my friends, I mean, this is just a little bit of a reacting, remembering session, and I'm glad to share this with you guys. I'm glad you guys are here with me watching this. Leave me some comments down below. Tell me about some of your favorite concert experiences, and if you have seen Metallica live, where and how you experienced it. And guys, I want to thank you for supporting my channel. Thank you for supporting this new series. I mean, thank you so much for what you do for me on the channel, and you'll never know how grateful I am for you guys. So, cheers guys.